Let's make a start with our big focus story this hour. A new document accessed by security agencies confirms links of a terror proxy with Pakistan's ISI. As per the agencies, the letter certifies Hizbul Mujahideen chief Syed Salahuddin as a bona fide official of Pakistan's intelligence agency ISI. Yes, this obviously comes as a huge embarrassment for Pak and officially confirms the links of the state with terror outfits once again. This letter, in fact, the matter is likely now to muddy the waters as Pakistan's performance in the implementation of the Financial Action Task Force Action Plan comes up for review in October this year. The FATF, remember, is an international watchdog against money laundering and financing of terrorism. It's only after the approval of the millions of dollars in grants and aid that are given to countries combating terrorism. Salahuddin, who also heads United Jihad Council, a terror organization formed by the Pak Army for unified command and control over anti-Indian terror groups operating in Jammu and Kashmir, has security clearance in Pakistan as well as per the letter. According to this, Salahuddin would not be stopped unnecessarily at any security checkpoint within Pakistan. Documents accessed by security agencies also show that this letter is valid till the 31st of December 2020 and nails Pakistan's lies about acting against terror, against terrorists, and including its continued support, shows its continued support rather for terror-related activities once again. Joining us on the broadcast, a special panel to decode this story for us, Professor Madhav Narapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is live with us. Major General Dhruv Katoch, defense analyst, is joining us live. He's also director India Foundation. We also have Ambassador Ashok Satyanar, former diplomat, who's joining us live. Sumit Peer, analyst and political commentator, is also joining us on the broadcast. Major General Katoch, let me begin with you first. Your reading of these letters, which clearly expose Pakistan once again, clearly nail the states and ISI as well as the army's links to Syed Salahuddin, a global terrorist?
Uday, I think this is not the first time that Pakistan stands exposed. Many a time, even their own prime ministers have made such statements. Pervez Musharraf has made this statement post demitting office. Imran Khan has made this statement in the United Nations. They keep coming to be made, but unfortunately what happens is that at some point, Pakistan will again come out with a denial. They will come out with some excuse or the other, but the whole world knows, and I think it is very, very clear to everybody that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism. And Pakistan uses terrorism and terrorists as its strategic assets. Now, as far as Salahuddin is concerned, this man, of course, is a known terrorist, and there is no secret about it. Now, there will be some level of embarrassment certainly to Pakistan once they have given him certain varieties of clearance, which obviously shows that he is in cahoots with the military and with the intelligence agencies. But I'm quite certain very soon we are going to come out, we will see Pakistan coming out with a denial. They will say it refers to some other Syed Salahuddin. They will give 100 other reasons to actually backtrack from something which has happened. Any time when Pakistan is actually goes anywhere near any of these strategic assets, they find a backlash coming, which also shows how strong those people are, these networks are within Pakistani society, which is becoming increasingly radicalized by the day. I really don't know if you can go beyond a certain level of radicalization, but if that is possible when Pakistan society is going in that direction. So, but having said all that, I think it is still a positive development. I think at each and every step, we need to expose Pakistan, need to expose their nefarious design, and ensure that at some point at least, the world gets together and puts this country on the blacklist. They have been on the grey list for some time. Now we need to place them on the blacklist of the FATF and see that they get their just rewards. The country has to be penalized for doing what it is doing now.
Absolutely. And this, of course, comes ahead of this all-important FATF meeting, which is going to be taking place, in fact, Professor Narapat, in October this year. Now, how can this letter, what is your reaction, of course, to this letter? What's the significance of it? And how can this letter, Professor Narapat, be used against Pakistan at the FATF?
Well, as General Katoch correctly said, it's no secret that the Pakistan army is hand in glove with terrorists. The terrorists are, in fact, an auxiliary of the Pakistan army, and that's been the case right from 1948 onwards. So this is a long-standing alliance. ISIS, for example, there are reports of Pakistan army officers training people who are in various ISIS contingents 6 years ago, or 7, 8 years ago, and training them in bomb making, and training them in explosives, and also training and giving access to night vision equipment and other equipment. So this is absolutely no secret about the Pakistan Army's links with terror groups, and this is only one more piece of evidence in that direction. I fully agree that I think it's very important for a detailed paper to be brought out on the links between terror groups and Pakistan. I think a detailed paper has to be brought out. It has to be circulated widely so that FATF, frankly, will have nowhere to hide if it does not put Pakistan on the blacklist. Pakistan ought to have been the blacklist 20 years ago. But the reality is it is not going to be on the blacklist in the next meeting also, because the protection it is getting from certain very powerful members of the FATF, one of which, a member of the UN Security Council, a permanent member, actually defends terrorists in the UNSC. So the reality is that the FATF has to be confronted with more and more irrefutable evidence so that eventually the world is made aware of the fact that FATF is essentially a paper tiger so far as terrorism in Pakistan is concerned.
Indeed. Sumit, please come in here. Sumit, once again, as I said earlier, this exposes Pakistan state's connections with terror groups. This exposes ISIS connections with terror groups. And Salahuddin is a known Hizbul Mujahideen operative, of course, but also is in fact someone who is the commander and the head of the United Jihad Council, the UJC, which is a known terror organization openly backed by the Pakistan army for command and control over anti-India terror groups in Jammu and Kashmir, Sumit.
Uday, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. When you look at the Syed Salahuddin, you see, Uday, we all know he's Kashmiri, he's born in Kashmir. Once upon a time in 80s, he also contested a local body election in Kashmir, so he's an Indian. Now, my problem is how is he surviving and living in Pakistan for 30 years without ISI and the active support of Pakistani government? So there are two people involved in ISI and the Pakistani government. Second disturbing fact about this person is United Jihad Council, which has 13 jihadi organizations inside it. And if you look at the data, the 60% of the total killings can be attributed to the members of United Jihad Council, which is a very, very disturbing fact. And in fact, some of the very high-ranking Indian Army and J&K police officials have unfortunately lost their lives because of this United Jihad Council. Another disturbing fact, very recently Pakistan says Dawood Ibrahim, the India's #1 enemy, declared international terrorism in Pakistan. Now you're Syed Salahuddin in Pakistan. Now he has been surviving in Pakistan for 30 years. He is responsible for killing of Indian Army and J&K police personnel. Now with this letter, what we imagined that we thought is a nexus becomes a fact. Now it is high time that first of all we should declare Pakistan as a terrorist state because of the Dawood Ibrahim thing and because of this letter coming out. This leaves not a speck of doubt for any kind of imagination. It's done, dusted, it's all settled. Now we should take it.
Do you believe the FATF should take immediate cognizance of this letter and blacklist Pakistan?
Sir, not only FATF, why not to UNSC, CWC, ICG, ASEAN, SAARC, all the international bodies with Dawood and this letter coming out, and we know his roots are Indian and he has been surviving, he's heading the United Jihad Council. It is the golden opportunity for us to declare them a terrorist state, and blacklist is the least what they should be. Otherwise, I completely agree with Professor Nath, but they will be seen as a toothless tiger. I mean, they will be a waste of time after some point of time. People will lose faith on FATF if they don't still act after these two startling revelations which have come up in the last 1 month.
Okay, let me quickly, in fact, also bring in at this point Ambassador Ashok Sajanar. Ambassador Ashok Sajanar, your reaction, of course, to the contents of this letter and how brazen it is that someone who's a known terrorist, is getting such security clearance in Pakistan as per this letter. Salahuddin should not and would not be stopped unnecessarily at any security checkpoint. according to this letter. Salahuddin is a bona fide official of Pakistan's ISI. I mean, these are the sort of contents in this letter. How scandalous is it, and how shocking is it, or is it unsurprising in your view?
No, I don't think it is unsurprising. I'm very, very surprised because, what I would have thought that when there are cases like this, when there are cases like Dawood Ibrahim, when there are cases like, even in terms of support to Hafiz Saeed and to Masood Azhar and all that sort of things, that they will be done in somewhat surreptitiously. They would be done somewhere, behind what is immediately obvious. But the fact that Pakistan is so brazenly, it is so audaciously, it has come out, and it is in black and white on paper, certifying that these are the credentials and he should be allowed. I'm sort of quite taken aback. So what I feel is that very soon Pakistan will come out with some sort of a lame explanation that what we or the world have been thinking, that this is that person who's associated with Hizbul Mujahideen. It's not the same one, but I'm sure the other antecedents and the other details and facts on this letter should be enough to prove that this person is the same as Sayyid Salahuddin, who has been heading the Hizbul Mujahideen group. So I think we should, first of all, I'm very surprised, but I'm very glad that it is out, that we have got an opportunity to make full use of it. And I think we should do whatever the merits or otherwise of FATF. I think we should take it to them and we should explain to them what it all means, what it all entails. And I think there is, even though, what Hassan Alapat says, that it's will be shown as a toothless tiger, I think it is still a sort of a Damocles sword hanging over the neck of Pakistan. That is why, all these coming out with the list of 88 terrorists, in which Dawood Ibrahim and Hafiz Saeed and all the other names are also mentioned. I think it is as a result of the pressure from FATF that they have been forced to take these actions. Also in terms of, putting through their own parliament, the Senate and the lower house, the Anti-Money Laundering Act and that Islamabad Waqf Act, which both of these got thrown out by in the Senate. But at least there is that pressure on Pakistan, which is forcing it to move in a certain direction. So in that sense, I would think FATF has its uses. I agree that it will not be possible even at this meeting to put Pakistan in blacklist. Maybe it's not all that much of a wrong thing, because then it will continue to strive to do something. We will also, be able to pile some pressure onto it. So I think we need to use it both with the FATF, this letter, and, let me bring in also this charge sheet by the NIA that was submitted on the Pulwama attack. I think there are so much of information that has become available to us in terms of the collusion that Pakistan agencies, whether it is the army or the ISI, they had gotten into it. I think all that information needs to be shared, because there should be no avenue left open to Pakistan to get out of this. And we should also take it to our friends and partners, whether it is the United States, whether it is Britain, whether it's France, the permanent members of the UN Security Council and the others, and tell them, like we were discussing just now about the visit of Raksha Mantri to Iran. So there also, because I think what impinges and impacts on our security will have an equal adverse impact, whether it is in Afghanistan or it is in Iran. So I think we need to sensitize our other partners also.
Okay. Yes. But strategically speaking, Major General Katoch, why specifically is Sayyid Salahuddin so important for the ISI? Why is the Hizbul so important for the ISI, and why is this outfit that obviously is propped up by the Pak Army, as I pointed out earlier, the United Jihad Council, so important for the Pakistani state? What is it about Saeed Salahuddin in particular that the state gives him so much patronage, as this letter shows?
I think perhaps it is something to do with his ability to to make certain Islamic organizations or people who follow the jihadi cult coalesce and join up together. This could be one of the reasons. But basically, let's understand what the problem is in Pakistan. The way I have looked at it is, you see, the Pakistan military wants to remain in power. That is fact one, and we are all well aware of it. Now, if it wants to remain in power in Pakistan, it needs the support of the mullahs within Pakistan. So here we have a military mullah nexus which has been operative in Pakistan for quite a long period of time. And it is this nexus actually which is very strong since a very, very long period of time. Now, I don't think this nexus is likely to be broken because both of them feed on each other. Now, as far as Salahuddin is concerned, he's come from Kashmir. So, in a sense, they can portray him as a leader of Kashmir and as a symbol of what they call Kashmiriyat, or whatever they wish to call it, as a freedom struggle of Kashmir. They can give it any name, that's a different issue. But as he belongs to that place, as he belongs to Kashmir, as Sumit Peer has very correctly stated, he has contested the elections from there. There could be an opinion within the world body, okay, he is at least some sort of a representative for those people. Now, it suits Pakistan's interest to get people like him there. It also suited their interest to get people like Dawood Ibrahim there. Now, the context may be slightly different because Dawood was not that radicalized a person as Salahuddin is. But Dawood had a different brand. Dawood's brand was that he was into smuggling and in converting or in dealing with the black money of certain Indian businessmen and politicians outside the world. And once he went to Pakistan and took shelter with the ISI, obviously the ISI came to know who all those people were, whom Dawood is dealing with, and they became susceptible to blackmail. And you can see some of those effects when you're seeing Indo-Pak relations go in a particular direction. We know who comes out to support Pakistan from within India. Now that is, I think, a direct result of the blackmail tactics which Dawood Ibrahim can impose through his links with the ISI, because the ISI is privy to what has happened. Now, there is a very large body of this data, this particular nexus which I'm talking about, which I think needs to be broken. And while FATF may not put them on the blacklist, at least I'm still glad we have a body like the FATF. Otherwise, without that, then you've got nothing. Now, our aim should be to see how we can strengthen FATF, how we can,
and also how the FATF's policies can be tweaked, because it can't just be veto powers, which can save the biggest of terror states and the biggest of.
Uday, I was about to get to that, because there are just 3 countries supporting them, and that's all the support they need. So can we shift the rules to make it a 2-country support or a 1-country support? Then that country can get isolated. I think there is something we need to tweak the rules, as you very rightly brought out, and then see what happens from here on.
All right. Let me bring in Professor Nalapat once again there. Professor Nalapat, how should India take this forward? This letter must, of course, be taken cognizance of by the FATF, but India has built a strong narrative against Pakistan, and we will continue to do so. We will expose them wherever necessary. How should India take this particular issue forward?
Exactly as General Katur just said, and I think one good point is that India has made a very substantial case against Pakistan to the FATF, which is presumably why only 3 countries are backing Pakistan. And absolutely, and if one of these countries separate from that and support the anti-terror movements, then the whole situation can change. The reality is, therefore, all I am saying is that as much data as possible needs to be conveyed about Pakistan, irrefutable data, so that those countries that are backing Pakistan will have nowhere to hide. Because the reality is, frankly, like it or not, so far as the public is concerned, when they know Pakistan is a terror state, whether it's United States, whether it is in Europe, whether it is in India, frankly, all across the world now, everybody knows Pakistan is a terror state. And when you consider that it's not on the blacklist, it does a disservice to the name of the FATF itself. So my simple point has been, let's continue this effort of giving as many facts as possible to the FATF, so that of these three states, at least one will see the light and move away and join the majority.
Sumit Peer, we're heading towards the end of the show. Your closing comments, Sumit, on at the end of the day, this exposing Pakistan once again, and the brazenness with which Pakistan acts, because it knows, as it has seen in the past, that nothing will happen to it. We've seen how brazen they were in supporting an individual like Masood Azhar as well, because of nations like China, irresponsible nations like China, giving a veto for a dreaded terrorist like Masood Azhar as well. I mean, it was only last year when finally Masood Azhar was designated as a global terrorist. We've seen how Hafiz Saeed has escaped any sort of harsh punishment despite his involvement in Mumbai 26/11, and perhaps it's this brazenness which leads to patronage of Syed Salahuddin as well. So,
I think the point here is, you see, this Syed Salahuddin is very, very important to Pakistan, and China, nobody would be willing to trade him off, because Hizbul Mujahideen has 70% of the local cadres. When Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed and all the local support is given by these local cadres of Hizbul Mujahideen. That is why he was made head of the United Jihad Council. Secondly, Hizbul Mujahideen, Uday, clearly talks of Islamic Khilafat. Thirdly, Hizbul Mujahideen clearly endorses Jamaat's agenda. Fourth, Hizbul Mujahideen clearly endorses the blueprint or the network of Hussein Haqqani. What is his concept of Islamic Khilafat and all. And last but not the important point, recently, you see, Hizbul Mujahideen has two friends. One was Burhan Wani, second was Zakir Musa. Zakir Musa, when he was alive, he clearly supported ISIS. So that ISIS element has also got in. So with all these things coming out, that is why Syed Salahuddin is such an indispensable or dispensable asset for Pakistan and SIA, because he is there en route to the ground. He is their gateway to the ground. They will not be willing to trade him off. His family lives in Kashmir. His family lives in Srinagar. And even some of them are in government job. Now the thing is, when we know who is our man, we know where he lives, we know where his family is, what stops us from eliminating this router? He's a router of trouble. All of the trouble in Kashmir is routed through him. And although I told you, if you look at the total number of high-profile killings, 60% have been attributed to United Jihad Council. It's such a dangerous organization this man heads. And incidentally, according to some media reports, when Dawood was still in business, ISI used to get 40% of the revenue share of this all drug and the arms business he does. And last but not the least point, just 10 seconds. For USC and FATA, if we have this unilateral vote, it should go by the majority vote, not by absolute vote. If 4 people in US NSC want something, that should happen. It should not have that all the people should say.
I'm going to have to leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.